Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. Jason Rogers, and I'm here today with Principal John Wolf to provide a presentation to you titled Ready Learner 1, How We Built a Real School in the Cloud, the true story of Rundle Studio. So it's our great pleasure to be with you today at the Smart Education 4.0, empowering learners and educators, and be able to share some of this information with folks from around the world. So we can hardly wait to get started. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Jason Rogers. I'm the head of school of Rundle in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Now, previously to Rundle Studio, there are two branches of Rundle. There was Rundle College and Rundle Academy, and I've had the opportunity to oversee those two programs as head for the last 8 years, and I've been employed here at Rundle for, since the year 2000. So if I was to break down the two programs, Rundle College and Rundle Academy, Rundle College is established in 1985. It's a school for kids in kindergarten to grade 12. It's for all students. It's typically a university preparatory school, as you would see many private schools be. It has 850 students. We're known for having small class sizes, 14 students, and 100% post-secondary admissions. One of the taglines, is along with our values of together, be kind, be curious, be well, is that character comes first at Rundle and always has. And it's consistently rated in the top 1% of all Canadian high schools when it comes to academic achievement. Now, for about 15 years, Rundle College existed alone in the Rundle ecosystem. And then in the year 1999, Rundle Academy came online. Rundle Academy is a grade 4 to 12 school as a part of our Rundle system. And it's for students with diagnosed learning disabilities. Now, these are students with average to above average intelligence, but they might struggle in one or more areas of learning. These learnings might be dyslexia or dysgraphia. They might be executive function or dyscalculia, but they do struggle in one or more areas of learning. However, we do very many of the same things as we do at Rundle College or Rundle Academy. And we see 95% of our Rundle Academy students into post-secondary programs of their choosing. We leverage universal design for learning and accommodations. And remarkably, even though every student in these programs has a learning disability, is consistently rated in the top 5% of all Canadian high schools for academic performance. So if I was to describe what the two programs are and how they relate to one another, Rundle College is not Rundle Academy. However, a lot of the DNA from Rundle College came across to Rundle Academy and allowed it to be successful in its pursuit to be the leader in personalized learning for students with learning disabilities. So that's a little bit about our programs. Again, briefly about me, I've been a part of these programs since the year 2000, been heading them since 2014, and recently I completed my doctorate at the University of Calgary on the topic of leadership practice of founding leaders in Canadian private schools. So I think that's enough about me. I am going to pass it over to our principal of Rundle Studio, Mr. John Wolf. John, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rogers. I am Principal John Wolf, and I've been with Rundle for many years, almost 15 years now, and I am extremely excited to be part of Rundle Studio. So Rundle Studio is something that's really exciting, and we want to tell you a little bit about where that came about. So Rundle Studio is our big, hairy, audacious goal. We know that we've been successful at Rundle College. We've been successful at Rundle Academy for so many years. And we know that there's an opportunity to help more students beyond the physical boundaries of our physical schools. So what we've done is we've taken what we know at Rundle Academy, what's worked for so many years, and we've brought that DNA, just like we did with the college, to the academy. We've done that now with Rundle Studio, and we've brought the same type of learning experiences for our students to be successful, to be leaders in online personalized learning for students with neurodiversity. So what does it mean to be the leader in online personalized learning for students with neurodiversity? We want to talk to you about how we built this school. We've been able to shatter the expectations of in-person learning. We don't have the same limitations. Once you move online, there are so many things you can do without the constraints of time and the physical spaces. We want to talk to you a little bit about who, what, when, where, why, and how we do this.
And because this is all so brand new, we thought it's just easiest to move through the 5 W's and the H to help everybody better understand exactly what we're looking at. Because as John stated before, nothing about Rundle Studio is conventional. And so hopefully in the next 15 or 20 minutes, we're able to give you a bit of a bird's eye view of the work that we've been doing in the studio and how we've reimagined education for these students. So let's get into the why just a little bit. First of all, good research tells us that 15% of learners qualify as having a diagnosable learning disability. Now, if we extrapolate that, can you imagine how many students would qualify as being neurally diverse? It would at least be a factor of 2 of that. And what Hattie taught us, in his visible learning work, is that these students can and do benefit from specialized programming. Okay, yet less than 10% of students diagnosed with a learning disability currently access specialized programs that will help them reach their potential and go on to post-secondary opportunities of their choice.
Some of the myths and facts about in-person versus online school. We know that not every student thrives in a physical school. There are a number of reasons for this.
And, John, to jump in, we see this during COVID pandemic. I mean, many of our students actually did better in online learning than they do in person. That can be for a variety of reasons, whether it's, social, emotional, mental health, or even educationally, which we'll talk about here briefly. Second to that, even in a small province like Alberta, we see 16,000 students choosing to be homeschooled in this province alone. So if we extrapolate that over all the provinces in Canada and all the countries in the world, it's easy to assume that there are hundreds of thousands of students who are thriving at home learning. And it's our goal to really democratize education for students who are neurally diverse across all of those students who either choose to learn from home or learn from home better. And so, John, why don't you hit us with the second myth and fact there?
Yeah, and this assumes that physical schools are the best way to learn. And as you mentioned, Jason, there are a number of students who actually really started to shine during online learning in the pandemic. When we switched over, we saw some of our maybe more quiet students, some of the students who we didn't hear from as much, all of a sudden, they were the ones who were able to voice what they were learning. They were able to be seen and heard in a different way. And that really allowed them to flourish and to show their understanding and to end up doing much better than they would have if they were in person.
And John, I think as attendees of this conference will realize, innovative pedagogies are so readily available in an online environment. I mean, it absolutely breaks down the expectations of a regular teaching scenario. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we get into the, nuts and bolts of the actual methodology behind the studio. So we'll save some of that for the coming slides. But there's so many opportunities inside the online space to be innovative in our pedagogical approach.
For sure. One of the things that we continue to hear and parents wonder a little bit about are, what about the social connection? I want the social piece to be there. And we know now that you do not have to be in person to build strong relationships. We live in a different age than maybe when we grew up. We know that there is online connections being made all the time. Through her work in her research in the book Remote Work Revolution, Sadal Neely points out that there's really 2 things that you need to build strong relationships. You need to have some kind of a cognitive connection, right? And you need to have an emotional connection. Both of these are very possible online. There's so many relationships being built. I mean, when you look at online dating sites, right? People have this type of relationships. And we know that when you go into education, students can make these connections. They can have fun together. They can build relationships in a different way than they would in person. And we know that thinking about in person, not every kid feels a connection in person. There are many schools, unfortunately, that have students who sit alone in a crowded lunchroom. There are many schools who have students eating their lunch in a bathroom. We've seen this over and over again, and this is something that doesn't have to be. In an in-person online environment, you're in your own home, and you can have that connection, the emotional and cognitive connection I talked about, while being safe in your own environment. So I want to talk a little bit about who are our students at Rundle Studio, who can attend this school. And we have quite the variety of students that attend. There are a number of reasons why they attend. So we've got some students who are neurodiverse, as Jason pointed out. And that was the original intent of our program, to meet the needs of those who need extra learning support. But we also know that we can be flexible in where students come to us from. We now have students from coast to coast in Canada, all the way from New Brunswick down to Vancouver and everywhere in between. We know that some of our students struggle with depression, and they don't feel like going to an in-person school where they feel more comfortable coming to an online version of that school. We also have some high-end athletes who travel around the world and need some flexibility to access our educational programming. We have students with autoimmune disorders, or we have, one student who has a 2-time cancer survivor who has a rod in her back, who being in person would be absolutely torture for her, whereas she can be comfortable in her own home and still access this quality education. We hear more and more about social anxiety. And as students struggle with this is something that really consumes their cognitive load when they're in person. Being at home reduces that cognitive load and allows them to focus on what is important, their education at that time. And we also have students with physical disabilities. A couple of students, we've got one with cerebral palsy, and he's able to attend this with much more ease and being included in all of our activities, just like any other student is online.
I'll jump in and take everybody through the what and the where of Rundle Studio. And I really appreciate that overview of our students. I think it would have been easier for us to create an online school for all students and not just the neurally diverse or those who have additional needs. But I think, John and my thinking early on was, if we could do this for these students who have this level of challenge, could we do it for everybody? Really at the heart of universal design for learning. So let's get into the what and the where of Rundle Studio. So first of all, where is Rundle Studio? DSEP Virtual School for Students with Neurodiversity. That stands for Designated Special Education Program in the province of Alberta. It's just a local designation, but it does make us the first and only school of this type in Alberta, and really the first and only type of this school in North America that supports students with neurodiversity. And obviously, we're looking at that personalized education for complex learners. And our trajectory has looked a little bit like this. I mean, we wanted to start small, and certainly some of my doctoral research supports this methodology. In 21-22, we started grade 7-8 with just 20 students. The year after that, we moved to grade 9 and we had 35 students. Next year, we're looking to have 50 students, and we're going to move nationally. And so we know that we have students in many provinces across Canada already. We hope to have students in all provinces and territories before long. In 24-25, we're going to move to grade 11 and have 75 students. And the following year, we will move all the way to grade 12 and have our first graduating class, the graduating class 2026 at Rundle Studio, with 150 students. And we hope that we'll have a great international contingent at that point as well. So as we move into really what is the nuts, or what are the nuts and bolts of the how of Rundle Studio, I'm going to take you through 3 of the core and fundamental models that we use as we've developed this program. The first one is the benefits of online learning according to Rundle and Rundle Studio. The second one is the breakdown of all of the parts. We call it the Rundleverse. What makes up Rundle Studio, and how do all these things come together to create the program that we have. And the third is really the methodology of teaching and learning for Rundle Studio. So I'm going to zip through this. By all means, reach out to John or myself if you have any questions about any of these, because I'm going to be moving quick as we move through it. So let's start with the benefits of online learning. The first two I want to focus on are obviously flexibility, okay, and accessibility. So we know, as we've mentioned before, students can attend class from anywhere. So if they, decide to travel with their parents around the world, not a problem. They can still attend class every single day. And we love that flexibility for our students. John will talk about the dynamics of some of our students, some of the professional or amateur athletes that we have in the program. It really helps them when they go away on competition for a period of time. Secondly is accessibility. Material can be accessed 24 hours a day. All of the asynchronous material is stored, and students can get to it no matter if they're up early in the morning or stay up late at night, or if they want to review for a test that's coming up on content that was provided 2 or 3 months ago. It's available 24/7, 365, which is a huge benefit of the overall program. We know that the world is flat now. We're doing a presentation in Malta from Calgary, which is extraordinarily exciting, and we're so appreciative of this opportunity. But we know that students are able to get information and instruction from people from around the world, whether they're professors or teachers in our program. They don't have to be located just in Calgary. We can have the best and brightest minds working with our students from anywhere in the world. And ultimately, students control their study time. This provides a flexibility so students aren't bound to a certain schedule. So often at conferences like this, we talk about how do we redesign or reimagine our school schedule. Well, guess what? The studio doesn't have that problem because we've got absolutely ubiquitously flexible schedule already embedded in the program. The next two parts of this are that it's cost effective. We don't have the overhead cost of bricks and mortar, which is a huge benefit for us being able to deliver a high quality program, and chances for interactions. As John mentioned earlier, this is not about social isolation. This is about social connection. And we're seeing cognitive and emotional connections in our city, across our country, from adults to students, from student to student, from student to professional. There are countless chances for interactions, whether it's through curricular or co-curricular activities, which we'll talk about in a little bit here as well.
And this was really the great equalizer here, Jason, if I can just interrupt for a second. This was one of my favorite things about moving online. This is where we get to see all students have the equal opportunity to participate in education. It's not just the kids who are the most emboldened to raise their hands. It's not the ones who want to just speak out, because we know there are those students, but this allows the quiet, shy students, the ones who may be neurodiverse, who maybe don't want to speak up, who are maybe anxious about their answer. They have multiple ways to anonymously show their understanding. And that really sets the tone for an equalized education for all students.
Absolutely, John. The last two are student-centered. As we've mentioned many times, we deeply personalize the education for each of the students in our care, which is a big deal, and better opportunities. We're going to talk about the opportunity to do options, get involved with co-curriculars, explore their passions. We know that the opportunities are unlimited when it comes to this in the studio in the Rundleverse. So coming up shortly, we're going to talk a little bit more on how do we get those opportunities to our students. So as you draw out, you kind of can try to forget the pandemic and think about the benefits of online learning. We can see that there's at least 8 that we've identified that enhance teaching, learning, and education for all students, but definitely for the students at Rundle Studio. This is the core of our online program. Let's get into the Rundleverse, as we call it. And these are the components of the Rundle Studio program. Quite intentionally, the Rundle Studio student is at the center of everything. It is the sun of the studio. It's the sun of the Rundleverse. And around it are all of the things that make up that universe. So first of all, there's synchronous learning every single day for our students. We take that synchronous learning in small chunks because we know that, even in person, our attention span is very short. And so we try to keep our lessons direct and short and to the point. But every day, all of our students have synchronous learning. There are asynchronous learning opportunities layered on top of that, which provides the flexibility for students to do the additional learning that they need to do to, have everything stick for them. Beyond the asynchronous learning, we've got co-curricular activities. I know John will get into this in more detail in the slides ahead. There are option classes. We have everything from business to culinary to physical education for our students to get involved in. We want them to be involved in their communities and demonstrate high character. Just like we said with Rundle College program earlier on, character will come first for these students. Beyond all else, we want them to be people of strong integrity and character, and we want them to go into their communities and make their communities a better place, whether it's here in Calgary, or it's in Vancouver, or it's in New Brunswick. And last, but certainly not least, we are playing in the metaverse. We have a digital twin where students come to meet, and John will talk a little bit more about how he uses that at, recess and field trips and deeper learning opportunities. I'm certain that many people on this conference are very aware of the visceral experience of the metaverse and its future impact on learning. And I believe we're realizing much of that currently at the studio program. And last but not least, as we continue to expand, we're having meetups, whether it's in our city where we go to the science center or we go off to the zoo. Once a month, we get together and we really create that real life school experience. There are rallies, there are award ceremonies, there are opportunities whenever possible to meet up. Certainly, as we expand nationally and internationally, it's going to require us to have homes in, Vancouver and Toronto and other major centers where students can get together and meet up. But that is also an important part of our program is seeing each other face to face, in person, on occasion, to build deeper connections with one another. As I mentioned earlier, the whole program is built around universal design for learning. I'm sure it's not lost on everybody at this conference, but we want to make it so that everything is accessible to all students all the time, no matter what their neurodiversity is. John has a student in his program who's legally deaf and blind, and this provides an incredible opportunity as a teacher and as a program to universally design for that student. Because think of it, if we can get the information to that student without barrier, I think we get the student information to all students without barrier, and we take on that challenge wholeheartedly. Last but not least, as a part of our layout, is how does this work from a teaching and learning perspective? We really do, I say to people, think of your best teacher ever, your best grade 8 teacher ever even. And for me, I think about Mr. McLean. He was an absolutely outstanding English language arts teacher, and he brought everything to life. The real vision for Rundle Studio is to have that best teacher take their skills and talents and democratize it, send it out to all learning groups so everybody can have my version of Mr. McLean. So as we send out Mr. McLean's lead teacher information to all of our smaller learning groups, and these are groups of 10 to 20 students, they get all the instruction, which is top-notch core curriculum instruction from Alberta. Goes out to the student learning groups. That's a synchronous part. As well, after that, each of them has a teacher advisor who's personally connecting with all of the students in those groups. And that teacher advisor sticks with those learning groups throughout the year and helps personalize all of the lead teacher's information. At the end of each day, the teacher advisors come together and they feed back the information to the lead teacher. So the lead teacher knows what the next day's instruction needs to entail, what got across, what did not get across, what needs to be further clarified, where there are extension opportunities, where there are teachable moments out of their learning groups, and away we go again. The next day, the lead teacher creates that top-notch curricular piece, that pedagogy, and sends it out to the learning groups. Learning groups connect with their teacher advisor, and the feedback loop happens once again. And this is really how we scale and democratize the entire Rundle Studio program for everybody. So as we look at the components of the Rundle Studio program, this is certainly what makes everything unique. We take the best of online learning. We've created the Rundleverse, which includes 7 unique facets of the program. 8, actually, if you include our unique students. And last but not least, our teaching and learning model is unique in this space as well. So John, why don't you tell us a few stories about some of the students, some of the programs, some of the opportunities that we have inside Rundle Studio as we bring this presentation home.
For sure. Thank you. So as Jason, you mentioned, we do have Zoom. Zoom is our main platform that we use to connect students on a daily basis. This is where we'll join up in the mornings. We'll connect through a teacher advisor. They will be able to meet with the students, wish them a happy birthday if it's their birthday, do a little fun activity, and just build that relationship a little bit as well. And we'll do our main instruction on Zoom as well. And it's easy to have the breakout rooms that we have on there. But as you mentioned, there is an optional component as well where we'll do monthly meetups. Not all of our students attend these monthly meetups. So we'll have a virtual online component and our monthly meetup. And those that want to have that in-person connection, we will have those times to celebrate with them and to hold assemblies and give them opportunities to join in activities where they're together. And we'll also have field trips. And again, these are optional field trips where many of our students, they tend to be in this area and they'll join up on our field trips. But again, we'll have an online virtual component for those who aren't able to get here or who choose not to be here for, again, the variety of reasons we talked about earlier. We do have a multitude of online activities that students can participate in. So we will have Esports Canada. Is a fantastic organization run through Melissa Burns out of Manitoba, and she's started this incredible program where our students will join and play either Rocket League, we'll play Brawlhalla. There's a variety of sports that are now national and they can compete in these tournaments. And we're also looking to build almost like an X Games style co-curricular activities where students can participate in individual sports such as wrestling for the studio or rock climbing for the studio, or maybe they're into horseback riding and they compete under our school name across the nation as well. We have a variety of clubs that students can participate in as well. Everything from coding that they can be included in, music club as well, or something like TEDx is also very doable in our program. So students are able to create ideas and present those digitally just like we are doing right now. And we have access to GOA just has a wide variety of courses that our students are able to take to further enhance their academics as well.
And John, if I could just jump in, I mean, the real point in all of our co-curriculars is allowing students to get involved in places that they might already be involved in, but bring it into our school environment. We know that things like esports and out-of-school activities are already happening. And so how do we engage that as a part of our school community and help be a part of that ecosystem to allow them to build fine character? And I think what's so often lost is in this incredibly large industry of esports, which is arguably larger than the real sports industry, there is very little coaching, refereeing, mentorship, so on and so forth. And I think it's part of our obligation as teachers in this world to support students in this. And Rundle Studio has been able to do that in a really unique and personalized way. So a big congratulations to John, you and your team to forging ahead as an esports leader in Canada.
Yeah, fantastic. One of the other areas where we're really pioneering is the use of our metaverse. And we are creating, as Jason mentioned, we've got a digital twin. Our students do meet up using their headsets. So you will use the MetaQuest headsets. And we use a platform called Engage. Our students are able to meet in this metaverse as if they're in real life. So this gives them a little bit more of a dynamic of a social connection. In the mornings, every morning, we have our virtual recess, and students, again, it's optional. They can come together here. We'll meet up and we'll play chess. We'll be in any environment that we choose to. We'll have students in a virtual forest, and it gives you the feeling as if you're there. You're not really there, and we know that you're not really there, but you have this immersive experience, and it's that immersive experience that really sticks with you. That's something that we're using and leveraging to build on our academics as well. We're able to do things in our virtual classroom that you couldn't do in a physical classroom. Some things like manipulating atoms and putting them together, having a hydrogen atom and an oxygen atom and building them together and actually holding them and looking at them from the scale that they would be at. You can't do that in a physical classroom, but we can do those types of things in a virtual world. Really, the virtual world is allowing us to remove all the barriers of our thinking and be creative in how we approach our curriculum. Some of our concepts are a little bit more abstract, and the metaverse helps our students to see those in a more concrete way. And we know that the learning increases dramatically when they have these experiences. Taking them through a dinosaur park or having them look at flight through David Attenborough's 360-degree immersive videos. That's something you can't do unless you're in this virtual world. So this is allowing us to leverage the technology to enhance education. This is what we're doing as our big, hairy, audacious goal. We're building a school for students everywhere, for all students. We started it particularly for students with neurodiverse learning, and we know that when we build a universal design structure where we can meet those students' needs, we can meet the needs for all students everywhere. If you are looking forward to learning a little bit more, we've got a couple of videos here that we can show you.
The magic of the studio for our family is that Oliver is working harder than he ever has at school. He's learning more and he's happier. So I would tell parents, forget what you've heard about online learning. This is a real school.
Better experience than my old school because the teachers are more engaged, the students are a lot nicer, feels like a real community. I just felt more like myself. I can have conversations with my teachers and they feel like real humans.
The teachers seem to know when to use an accommodation, when to try a different accommodation, and when to stretch Oliver.
Like I'm able to hand in my assignments all the time. I barely am behind at all because the teachers are so supportive and stuff.
When we interviewed at the studio, the principal, Mr. John Wolf, told us, I said, I just don't feel like we're engaged, that I don't know what's happening. And he said, that will not be your experience at the studio. And that's true. Things that seemed out of reach for post-secondary are no longer out of reach. Wherever you live in Alberta, be able to access a program of this caliber means you can access the best teachers in Alberta.
I'm excited to hop on Gather, and it's fun going on field trips and meeting up in real life. I definitely feel more positive about school now. But on weekends I don't feel like super anxious about going to school the next day because I'm at home. It's more like it feels more similar to a weekend.
We honestly, on Christmas Eve at our house, we say, please say something you're thankful for. And all three of us said the studio. It's exceeded our expectations. It's working for Oliver. It's working for us as a family. And we can't wait for high school. There's a better way. There's a better way to go to school.
That's one example of how it's making a difference for families. I'll show you one more quick one here before we end it.
Hello.
All right, we've got, how is it going with yours?
Good. My name's Mia Zero, and I love Rundle because I feel like they just teach you more. And like at my old school, I found it like kind of difficult because they would just like give us something and kind of expect us to like know it. Whereas here, they actually like break it down, teach us.
I think in any profession, you can identify the people that want to be doing it and those who don't. And in this environment, every teacher, principal, administrator that I've come across wants to be doing it, and they have a passion for teaching, they got a passion for the kids, so.
I was a little bit more excited that I didn't have to leave home, but I was also like wondering how it was gonna make friends and stuff.
It was a hard switch for our family, but no regrets. The amount of success she's seen and the relationship she has with her peers and her teachers, it's surpassed all expectations I had.
So there's really a teaching that's going on, and it's interactive where I think the kids really understand the content. It's just a new world of this virtual relationships that happens, and I think it's such a positive experience that the kids look forward to meeting each other in person.
Me and my friends normally Zoom, where like we'd be sitting together, I guess you could say, and be eating lunch.
From a parent's perspective, you're not fighting traffic in the winter when it's -30 and it takes 45 minutes to get to work, or an hour and a half.
It's a community. She loves her teachers, she loves her peers.
At the end of the day, the kids have so much more time for extracurricular activities.
Or at least for me, I get to sleep in longer. If you get tired of like one place, you can move to another.
I think Mia was aware that accommodations were being made for her, and I think sometimes in certain school environments that's just the way it is, and that's how the kids are going to learn, and that's what they don't understand, and that's just going to be the reality. And I think this Rundle experience is that the accommodations are just interwoven into learning in a way that there's no focus on them. It just kind of happens. So often if you do recognize you have an accommodation, or maybe some kind of issue, you're less likely to raise your hand and kind of stop the teacher and go, wait, I don't understand this.
I think she has the same opportunities, the same friendships. I think she has better relationships with her teachers. That goes towards building her self-confidence.
I'd be more likely to rewind and have an audience of people that I can sort of recall and say, I told you so. There isn't a limit to what you can accomplish or what you can do, and it's just about the tools that you source to get the job done.
Thanks for those, John. And I really like the last statement in that video. No, there's no limit to what we can accomplish or what we can do. And I think that's really the beautiful part about Rundle Studio, is there's absolutely no limitations on the education that John and his entire team can provide. And so on behalf of John, myself, Rundle Studio, and everybody, we'd like to thank you for attending. We'd like to thank the conference and the conference planning committee for allowing this opportunity to present to this audience. And we look forward to attending the conference, albeit virtually, with many of you in the days ahead. So thanks again for this opportunity. And John, I'll pass it over to you for the last couple of comments.
Just thank you so much. This is fantastic to be able to share what we've done here. And if you're out there doing anything like this, we'd love to hear from you and connect and build this community of schools and education for all of our students. To do that, you can feel free to scan this QR code. You'll get my information on there. And again, I would love to be able to connect with you. Thank you again so much, and we hope to see you somewhere down the road.